Good evening, Bomb Squad community. Welcome. Thank you guys for tuning in. Keith B Dixon, it's official. You are in the Kilo Bravo Delta zone. And tonight we're going to be talking about real estate photography, interiors mostly. What's going on? Are you guys hearing me okay? Is the audio working out fine for you? Definitely want to test that audio. Make sure it's working. Throw up a Wi-Fi if the audio is working. I'm also doing a dual broadcast on YouTube. So all you got to do is just slide over to YouTube, Keith B Dixon, type it into the search. You'll be right there. So good evening. Good evening. We've got a pretty interesting broadcast lined up for you guys. So I think you're going to get a lot of value out of this. And this is probably one of the most asked but not practiced areas of photography. A lot of people ask about it. A lot of people don't do it. Architectural is very, very interesting in terms of the approach. Oh boy. Okay, so it looks like the green screen is doing its thing. All right, you guys. So we're gonna have to deal with the little fuzzy thing right here. You guys see that? Yeah, we're gonna have to deal with that. Anyhow, what's going on? Let me see names and locations. And then we're going to get started. We're going to get started on this information. I'm going to share some tools that I use, and I'm also going to talk about the process of it and things you should look out for. Let me see names and locations, and thank you for the hearts and the shares. There's Michelle, Captain Amber, LaFaithia, what's going on? Commander Mike, Maryland, what's Joseph, Captain Joseph, Rob from Detroit, what's going on, Rob? Rob, are you new? I think you might be new. I don't know. I think this might be my first time seeing you in the evening. Anyway, welcome. Appreciate you. Hope to see you at Exposure. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for tuning in, my friend. Okay, so let's get started because I definitely gotta run up out of here. There's Daryl Hutton, hype man extraordinaire. Thank you for the hearts, Amber. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's get this show on the road, you guys. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, I am doing, this is the fourth session of the 90 PT. And it's marketing, sales, business, social media, lighting, education. We cover the gamut for 12 months. And every month on the third Saturday, we go at 9 o'clock. It's a webinar, and it starts right on time. So if you're late, you might have to go back and watch the replay depending on what program you're on. And this is the red program. The red program, you've got 3 opportunities to watch it. They're all around the 9 o'clock hour, AM, PM, and they run concurrent. So every Saturday. So if you miss it, you can watch it the following Saturday at 9 p.m. And if you miss it then, you can watch it at 9 a.m. So these are all Pacific Standard Times. Now, there's also a blue program, and I want you guys to know about the blue program as well. The blue program is anytime. So this is the blue train. It's anytime. You can watch it anytime you want, as much as you want. So that's the difference. It's a $100 difference. It's unlimited action. There you go. All right. Whew. Hey, there's all kind of technical stuff going on here tonight. Look at this. What's going on with this? All right. Tonight, you guys, we're going to dive into residential real estate. And we're going to talk about making some photos and things you should look out for. And maybe you're selling your house and you want your house to be shown correctly. You need great photos. I mean, the photos can represent a 10 or 15% jump. This is a statistic that was done on some real estate research. A real estate research company did a study, and they found that great photos can increase the value of your home 10 to 15% depending on how those photos were made. This is a real study. So here's the deal, and I'm going to flip back to this because I want to set this up properly. I've been photographing real estate probably just as long as I've been a photographer, and within the last 5 years or so, I really kind of made it obvious. I used to never really talk about it because it's a sensitive type of photography. Everything's got to be accurate, colors, paint, lines, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight, the lines, the color, how it's affected by light. and the angles that you choose. Now, for the most part, like anything else, people just go out and with their crop sensor cameras, crop sensor lenses, and make photos, full frames, kit lenses, consumer bodies, and they make photographs, and they basically sell those to the realtors. There's a lot of that going on. The realtors condone it because it's better than maybe their cell phone picture, and gives them some level of service to the person selling the house, because it's like, hey, I'm going to have a photographer come in and photograph your house. They're not saying what type of photographer is coming in. They're just saying a photographer. And then you get the photos back, and it's like, well, it's better than my cell phone, so I guess it's good. Let's roll with that. That's not me by a stretch. In the Bay Area, and I'm going to show you single family homes, I'm probably one of the most expensive photographers in the Bay Area for what I do. And I only work with select agents. And before I say yes, I'm going to work with you, I'm going to Google your realtor webpage and see just exactly what you're doing to make sure that it fits into what I do. I'm very, very picky about this part, because if the house is not staged properly, if it's not set up properly, it can be a disaster. And then if you're working with a realtor who doesn't value your work, what tends to happen is the next best thing that they think is coming along, they will drop you and go with someone else. Is this making sense for you guys? I want you to put in 1.1. Let's go. 1.1 if this makes complete sense to you. All right. So let's start with one of the tools that I use. And there's a reason why I use this particular tool, you guys. There's a reason for it. And you've heard me talk about this briefly. You've probably seen it more in my Twitter feed. But this is called the Lume Cube. It's a little small compact light, battery operated. You can get about 20 minutes on a full charge at full power. It has 10 settings. So let's speak in photographer talk. It has 10 stops of light. Now, lumens transferred into Lume Cube, yes. Lume Cube transferred into, when you take those 1,500 looms and you equate it to, well, what is the wattage of that? If we have a light bulb, it's going to be equivalent to a 100-watt light bulb. If we have fluorescent lights, it's going to be the equivalent to about 60 watts. So there's a big difference there. And it's roughly about $80. And I do have a code. I believe I do have a code. I'm going to have to tweet that out because I couldn't find it. But I do have a code that will save you some money on this light. Here's the deal. I need to travel light most of the time, all of the time. And I was looking for a way to carry lights that would accent certain things in the property. So what I did is I started testing this light out, and this month they're going to have what's called Lighthouse. So it's a enclosure that fits over the light that allows you to adjust the color temperature. So I'm going to definitely be getting one of those and trying it out. But here's how, if you look at the fireplace, you'll notice that I'm just throwing some extra light onto the fireplace. And what I'm attempting to do here is to help my camera's dynamic range. And that's just the amount of lights and darks and details the camera can see. So that's all I'm doing right there, is I'm using this light to pop in, and I probably have it on the second or third setting here because I don't want to blow out the color of the paint. Okay. Hold on. There we go. So I don't want to blow out the color of the paint and or the texture. So I'm using this light just to add just a touch, so it doesn't show up so much in the photograph that it looks like it's flashed. And I know a lot of photographers use flash. I'm going to tell you that's time consuming. I'm into maximizing my price point. You guys. So this is how I do it. And I'm going to show you just how versatile these lights are. So I have this little stand, and Lume Cube does have their own stand, but I actually own these before they came out with all the little accessories. So, I had to basically hack my own stuff, or I had to use my own stuff to hack this. But this is just a webcam stand, and I've got it pointed on this particular case at the wall. Now here's the difference. There's the difference right there. So with no light, that's how we're looking. Could I create a photo with the no light? Absolutely. It's really easy to do. I've been doing it for years. But what I found is when I pop just a little bit of light on there, it increases, not only it decreases my workflow in terms of just how many exposures I got to create, but I've been making better and cleaner photos just by putting that light in there. So that's the difference right there. So my camera's not working as hard. It's working in a shorter dynamic range versus that dark where your camera's just fighting with that bright light on the doorway, and that light that's and that no light that's to the right. So there's a huge difference there, as you can see. Is this making sense for you? What's up, Yak Yak Photo? Is this making sense for you? I want you guys to drop in. I want you to drop in 2.2. 2.2 if this is making complete sense for you. And by the way, I'm dual broadcasting on. What's up, Iris, on the YouTube side? Let me see who's on YouTube. Iris is over there. Yes. Yeah, Periscope is. Periscope can be tricky. Okay, so here's the difference without the Lume Cube and with the Lume Cube. So I've got it turned down to the lowest setting, and also I'm using distance as well to control intensity. And this is the light I use. It allows me to move through the property, in this case, within 60 minutes. So I'm here for about 60 minutes, and I'm just working all the way through the property. Now, here's the other thing that I like about the Lume Cube that I think is really important is the versatility of the light. So you guys are watching me live stream right now, and guess what? Guess what's lighting me? The Lume Cube. So I've got it, as you can see, I've got a little attachment that fits into a hot, this is a cold shoe, and it's plugged into the cold shoe. I've got it, it's about I'm going to say 2 stops up or 2 clicks. And this is the versatility of this light. And this is the one reason why I like it. And if you remember, I shot a scope a while back where I used all Lume Cubes, and it was challenging to shoot a portrait in studio with them, but we got it done. All right, let's talk about some challenges in photography, and let me bring this up here. All right. So here's a property that I photographed, and yeah, quarter inch thread, and they are, that's a real good question. LEDs, I'm going to assume it's got to be an LED. No, I don't know, because when I read through the specs, I didn't see LED, so I'm not sure. I'll have to get back to you guys on Twitter with that answer. That I'm not sure of. But if it is LED, does it get hot? Yes. And let me give you a hack before we move forward. I'm going to give you a photography hack. So I mentioned that the Lume Cube will go at full power for 20 minutes. But if you have a small battery charger, the things we use to charge our phone, if you have one of those, you can actually plug it in, and the Lume Cube will run, and it won't get hot for as long as you need it. And I've kept mine on for about 4 hours. I kid you not. So there's my hack. Plug it into a battery, and you've got a good constant light. So that's going to be my hack. And they're also waterproof, I think up to 60 meters or something like that. So that's going to be my hack. Yep. And there's a little plug that goes in the back of the light that'll seal it, so you can use it underwater. That's the popular thing that they're doing with it. And my hack is, of course, you can't do this in the rain, but if you needed to use it consistently for longer than 20 minutes, use a battery pack and plug into the battery, and then plug into the back of the Lume Cube, and you're good to go. All right, there we go. Now, let's take a look at this image right here. This was photographed. This was actually a $5 million property in California. That's what we have. And the important thing here is just the lines. And when you see converging lines like right here, that's okay. because it's like one, it's not so obvious. It's blended in to the ceiling. The ceilings are high, so it stretches out the distortion a little bit. But you got to be really careful with these type of shots because the angle that you decide on, I'm talking about the angle in terms of the angle, the height, whether you're straight on to the curve, you're in a corner, whatever the case may be, you got to be super careful because if you shoot this from the corner, this line is going to start to distort right here and you're going to have a lot of problems. So thank you, Mike. So you're going to have a lot of problems. And I usually shoot straight on. Anyone that's hiring me knows that I'm going to shoot, I like to say flush. I'm going to shoot flush to the room, and I'm going to make sure that all my lines are plumb. That's a construction term, plumb, meaning straight. I need the lines to be straight, and it's not always possible to correct everything, but you want them as straight as possible. And the other thing that you want to look out for is this right here. Now, you notice how the couch is elongated, so it looks bigger here and smaller there. Well, this was the original staging that they did, and the owner was upset with it because it just wasn't that good. So they ended up taking this out, and that's why I'm showing this particular photo. But as you can see, the couch is somewhat elongated, and when you're shooting interiors, the staging is critical. If the stager doesn't understand how the house is going to be photographed, you got your work cut out for you. And I'm going to tell you, about 80% of the time, they don't. They'll take large furniture, put it in a small space. Now, not so much, but I've seen stagers do that. Like this couch, I would have definitely went with a smaller piece, and a different piece here. This table, this it just doesn't go together. So if you're trying to attract a high profile client, they're going to look at that photo and say, the design is really bad. Photo's good, design bad, So these are the kind of things that you can contend with. There's no sitting area around the fireplace. There's nothing around the fireplace, and that's the other mistake here. Fireplaces are big sales in houses. And you got to know that going into it. So that's kind of what we're working with in this particular photo. Now I'm going to pause for some questions. If you guys have questions, be sure to put them in. Let me see. I'm going to get over here on the YouTube side and see if I know Iris does interiors. All right. Any questions, you guys, before I move on? All right. Now, here's one of my favorite photos. And it's a favorite because of the feedback that I got on it. And the house actually sold over asking. And the reason why this is one of my favorite was because gray couch isn't color complementary. I don't know if it's a gray couch. I mean, I don't know. It could be olive. I'm not really sure. And neither was the people that own the property. I mean, this. I shot this house 4 times, you guys. Literally. Can you turn up the volume? I'm talking. Oh, you know what? The volume is kind of low, you guys. That might be a Periscope thing because I'm not really sure. That might be. How's the volume? Is everybody able to hear me? Because I'm getting low indicators on my side for Periscope. Let's sounds good. Okay. All right. Low. Okay, you guys might have to turn me up. I'm not really sure on the audio. Okay, so what about a higher price over the fireplace? Volume is good. Little low. Okay. Faithia, what do you mean about the fireplace? Tell me, help me out with that one. Fireplaces from the home standpoint adds value to the sale. Yeah, there you go. Okay, now I got it. So it adds value to the sale of the property, a fireplace. So you want to accent that as much as possible. So keep that in mind. Um, Most of the time when the staging is done, you're not in on it. They're not going to tell you about it. But I do move furniture around, and that's kind of what I do. All right, now here's a property that I photographed, as I mentioned, and one of the things that I liked about it was the feedback that I got because the house sold over asking, and that was a great thing for me. Now, here's the difficult part about this house. You notice how the bush in the front just kind of pops up into the screen. You notice that? I mean, you see that bush, it's kind of prominent in the screen, where there was really no other way to photograph this house, which was kind of frustrating. So I'm walking, basically looking at all the angles, what's going to work best for the lens. And I chose this angle because I had the most headroom, number one. Number two, there was less of the other properties in the photograph. You're going to get that a lot. And the thing that you don't want to do sometimes, because the house next door could be kind of busted or not as good or not up to date, and people see that, they kind of get turned off. So you got to be real careful with how you include other properties next door. Now here's the real challenge, because that was part of the challenge here, but here's the real challenge. The house is elevated and I'm not. And typically I'll carry a ladder in the back of my truck. Sometimes that is a challenge because there could be a side, like an uneven sidewalk. I've had like no sidewalks. I mean, yeah, drones work. Drone is definitely a solution, but it's just a challenge. And I'm going to show you another property so you can see the difference. But I chose this because they wanted the front lawn in the photo. This was important for them. And this is the reason why, because the house is set back. They wanted to show off the lot because the house was actually small on the inside, you guys. So they said, hey, Keith, how can we emphasize the lot in the setback on the property? Setback meaning how far is it back from the sidewalk? So this house is set back, so that's the reason for this photo. And it actually worked. I was a little hesitant, and I was thinking maybe I'll get up, but it would have just cut out the landscaping and the bushes, and I'm going to show you how that happens in this very next photo. Here it is. This house is sitting on the same perspective. I'm actually down the hill, and what I did is I got up on a ladder and photographed this. You can notice there's not a lot of foreground there, and I'm shooting with you ever use wrap to correct the spec all day long. I mean, you almost have to. And here's the other thing. Sometimes you can't get up on a ladder. I mean, it's not conducive to the area. There's just a lot of reasons. So what I do is I use the widest angle lens possible. Not a fisheye, but I'm going to go down to 14, and I'll tilt it up and then go back and change it afterwards. Now, I'm telling you this because you cannot do this effectively with a crop sensor. This is where you have to own a full frame, or you're going to be in trouble because the angle of view is just too tight, even at 14. Because 14, I think it's 12 to 24 for Nikon is the crop sensor. You got to multiply that times the crop factor of 1.5, so you just lost right there. So you got to almost be across the street to make that photo happen and then be elevated. But by that time, you're going to include all the stuff in the street, the cars, even if you do shoot it wide. So this is one of the times where I actually used the 14 to 24 crop sensor, this 14 to 24 is going to be a full frame for Nikon, and then there's the 12 to 24 for Nikon as well. This is one of those times where I had to use a ladder. So I'm on a 6-foot ladder because the slope was that steep. So these are the kind of things you can run into. So if you're going to shoot residential, you got to carry a ladder in the back of your truck, number one. And I emphasize the word truck. You got to carry a ladder, at least a 6-foot ladder, at least. And you don't have to always use it. There's ways of getting around it. and I do that sometimes. But when I don't want to do a lot of work, then the ladder is coming out, and a lot of work means just correcting the photo back. Is this making sense for you guys? I'm gonna pause for some questions. And you guys, we're having so many challenges with Periscope today. I don't know if this, you see the little fuzzy ants? Do you think it's ethical to remove? No, that is not ethical. 6 foot ladder? No. And that's a good question. Don't remove things out of the photo. Like, I mean, just don't do it. It's not ethical at all, and I never do it. Wires coming out of the wall, like cable wiring, that's kind of minor. But overhead wiring, anything outside of the house, no. Plugs, I don't do plugs, because somebody could be buying the room based on the amount of plugs they might say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna hook up 5 computers in here. I need 6 plugs. What's up, Mary B Photo? So, yeah, it misrepresents the property. So I don't do any photoshopping unless it's, like a spot or something, or cables, like, like you have your cable coming out of the wall. I'll clean those up. Like if they're dangling out on the floor, and then I'll just cut it off so you can know that there's cable right there. But that's the extent of what I do. Any other questions? Any other questions? If you guys just tuned in, we're talking about residential real estate photography, and I'm sharing just a few tips. The Lume Cube, I use the Lume Cube for added field light, and so that my camera doesn't have to work hard, and I don't have to work hard in creating those exposures. And I've actually metered all the stops, so I kind of have an ideal based on the distance that the light is at, what f-stop it'll give me. So that's one of the things that I do, and I usually shoot very low ISOs. If you had to ask, tips for staging. Oof. I would go with the best stager possible. I hope I'm under Michelle. If I understand the question right, ask that question again, because I didn't understand it. It sounded like you were like asking about the quality of the staging and should the photographer get involved. I think that's what you meant. If you could retype that for me so I can give you a better answer, that'd be great. Any other? Always use a tripod. Always use a tripod. And if you're an experienced photographer, I'm going to say that you could use a, okay. Ask you for staging tips. No. I'm gonna say no, but when I get there, they do. So not initially. I'm not involved in that process, but when I get there, they'll say, "Hey Keith, what do you think of this?" And then I'll be honest and tell them, or how do you think this is gonna? Because what they see in terms of the design may not work for the camera. So sometimes I'm moving stuff around. They'll put a couch at an angle, and then I'm going to turn it straight because that couch is going to distort in the camera, and I want to avoid that. So, and there's a way that you have to be diplomatic about it and say, hey, I'm going to photograph it this way because it's obviously going to make the photo look different. I was going to say, if you are a new photographer, I've set up cameras as close to the corner as possible, shoot remote. Thoughts? Okay, that's a great question. And here's what I'm going to say. I hate corner shots because of the distortion the converging lines and the distortion that it creates, and it makes the walls look funny on the side. So you end up losing a lot of real estate. So you gain a lot of real estate by shooting from the corner, but you end up losing it in correction. But if you have high ceilings, then you can shoot from the corners. It's a lot easier. You don't get as much distortion. So just remember, the closer the lines are to the center, or I'm sorry, the outside, the more distortion you're going to have. So although you're making it wide, you're creating that barrel distortion. Yes, tools you need. You definitely should have a cam ranger, and then Tether Tools makes a unit as well, and I can't remember the name. If somebody could put the name up there, they just came out with a new remote air, I think it's called, or something. What's up, Tamashian? So you have to have a way to tether your images. Absolutely. Make the room as big as possible. Okay, so we're gonna differ in philosophy. My objective when I'm photographing any type of space is to make the space look like the space. Always. That's always my number one goal. And if the client is in disagreement with that, they're probably not my client. Because and here's the psychology behind it, when people walk in, if they see that photo and then they walk in and say, wow, this looks way smaller than the picture, oh boy, uphill battle for the realtor. Because now they've got to come up with an objection for that. I mean, they got to overcome that objection. So it's best to shoot the room as the room looks. And if the realtor thinks, well, you made the room look small, well, no, I made the room look like the room. It is small. You know, let's not call an orange an apple. So that's my thought process on that. Yes. Remember, you are photographing, and I say this because you are photographing an image to get people in a great mood about buying the house. They're already excited. They're going to see the photos. They're going to get excited. They're going to go in, and the realtor is going to do their job. So that's kind of how you want to think about it. If the images are dark, distorted, and someone real technical, they was like, wow, the floor looks like it's warped. Yeah, it's about misrepresenting the house. If the floor looks warped, or the ceiling looks warped, or the photo looks warped, they're gonna pass. I'm gonna tell you, a realtor that'll post a photo like that, I definitely wouldn't want them selling my house. That's for sure. If they're coming in with their cell phone, they're not staging the property. They're not. The realtor's got to make the client work. I mean, that's the reality. You know, and unfortunately for us clients, when we're selling our house, we got to be prepared to do that. If that means getting it staged, you know, or inconveniencing our life for however long it takes to get it done, we've got to be willing to do that. But when we're not willing to do that, and then the realtor says, well, I'm just going to work around it because I want to get paid, that's when the problems really start. And I think that's the problem in real estate right now, is they want to get the deal, so they're just working around the client as opposed to saying, hey, look, you are not ready to sell your home. This is what we need to do. I don't know. That's my 3-minute rant on this industry, and also a lot of my frustration with having been in real estate photography for so long. I mean, I've seen just a lot of good stuff and a lot of bad stuff that realtors do and that photographers do. And I got to tell you, they don't last. A lot of those agents that would accept that kind of stuff, they're not around. Any other questions? Any other questions before we dive out of here? YouTube question, go. Let me see here. Thank you, Joe. Okay, so on the YouTube side, hey, you guys, I'm trying to get used to seeing these comments on the YouTube side, which is so funny. So on the YouTube side, Iris said, how do you use a tripod on the ladder? Oh, that is, hey, Iris, hey, that's a dope question. Like, it really is. Well, there's a couple different ways. And the first way that I'm going to tell you is basically they make these bean bags, camera bean bags, and I don't know the name of them, but you know what? Let's bypass the word camera bean bag. And what you're gonna get you like a mouse pad, a wrist rest, those things that you rest your wrist on, something like that, and you're just gonna put it up underneath your lens. You can also use a sandbag as well, and you're gonna set your camera on the top step, on the very top, and then all you got to do is just make sure that your camera is sitting flush on the camera body's flush on the ladder, and then you're gonna have that sandbag, that bean bag, or whatever it is you have underneath the lens part. And then I use a trigger remote, and the trigger remote that I use is corded. I don't use wireless trigger remotes, and that's a whole nother story. If you guys are interested in why, I'll definitely tell you. I don't use the electronic trigger remotes. I use a wired with a cord remote, and I literally take the pictures like that. And then sometimes I've been on really big ladders where setting up a beanbag didn't work, and I literally rigged up my tripod to the ladder with bungee cords. So I'll set the legs on the ladder rungs, and then I'll bungee cord them so that and then adjust the top head. So that's a lot of work. What's up, Maryland, London? So there's a lot of ways, but the best way is to have some sandbags. Yeah, or yeah, you can use yeah, that's a good one too. The grips, what are they called? The clamps. Those are really good. The arms. I'm gonna say use whatever doesn't move or vibrate. Use whatever moves that doesn't vibrate or move. So if it doesn't vibrate, because remember, you're on the ladder, the higher you go up, the more it's going to wobble. So you got to be careful about that. Whatever you use, you got to make sure it doesn't vibrate, because if you're shooting a slow shutter speed, you're going to get that vibration in your image. Any other questions? You guys are asking really good questions, by the way. This is a good time to do it. We can talk. Any question is fair game. How much money you charge? How do I get jobs? Let's take advantage of this right now. It's Friday. Ever? No. Not on a job. Not on a job. How do I get jobs? 8-foot light stand with a jobby grip. Yeah, and a Cam Ranger. Yeah, that'll work. That's a good solution. How do you get jobs? One of the easiest ways to get jobs is to basically contact a real estate office. Contact a real estate office and ask for the manager who runs the office, and say, "Hey, I'm a photographer. Do you allow vendors to come in and make presentations?" And because you want to get in front of them physically, find out where their meetings are, and that's the best way, because if you get in front of a lot of realtors, you're bound to land one or two. And going with a real tight presentation and your best work, that's the best way to get jobs. The second best way to get jobs, because you're only going to be dealing with a small population of realtors from each office, you got to bring good shots, and you have to present like, this is why I do photography, and this is why it will help you, so to speak, is to go to realtor meetings. They have listing meetings, and like here we have every Thursday, I believe, Thursday morning 7:30, there's a listing meeting, and all the realtors in the area, in the Tri-City areas, will go to this listing meeting, and you can basically pass out cards there and network with people. And if you pay a little money, they'll let you, they call it a sponsorship. If you pay a little money, they'll let you get up and do a 5-minute speech. So now you're talking to less concentrated realtors and more realtors like spread out all over the place. And then the best way is to drop in and see them with a portfolio. Say, hey, I'm a photographer. I have my portfolio available on my iPad. Do you have 5 minutes? I know you're busy. That works as well. And if you're really good, they're going to refer you. But you want to become a vendor. Yes. And that's a good way. So if the open houses, that's definitely good too. You can go to an open house. The only thing about the open house that if you go to an open house that I photographed, the agent's going to be like, "Oh, okay, thank you, see you later," right? Because you're up, if your images aren't as good as the images printed on those flyers, you're going to be in trouble. So you got to make sure your work is tight. Yeah, plus they're looking for clients, so they're not going to really want to talk to you because people come, the title companies come through and they'll do that same thing. So I don't think that's not a good selling situation because of what they're trying to accomplish on the open house. Any other questions? Questions. What about researching their list? Yes. Okay, now that's a hot one right there. I love that question. Look, Michelle brings up a dope question. If you want to get to know the type of realtor you're going to be working for, research them. Research their listings, what they're selling, and what they're representing their listings with, and then and then you hit them. It's like, here's my work. I'm available. At the drop of a dime, whatever the case may be. You you have to be able to deliver those photos within 24 hours. Do walkthroughs have to have video? Um, Video. Video is tricky. I don't know that I would ever do video for my properties. I don't know if I'd ever get into it that way. Um, I think stills, and I'm biased. I think stills is the way to go. If you're gonna do it, stills is the way to go. Video, you're gonna lose money with a realtor on video. I mean, unless you have something packaged, ideal in a way that you're gonna shoot it. But I don't see that as being. Most of the people I know that shot video for real estate, they're gone. Or they're targeting super high end clients where they're making high dollars on their bookings. It is. How do you feel about avoiding the mid to the high, avoiding the mid to the low? Oh, that's a great question. Um, if I was just starting out, I would take the low, so I could build a relationship. And if they weren't doing volume like 4 or 5 a month, I wouldn't work for them. Because if you're making $75, $60, and I've even heard people making $60 on a shoot, but usually it's around $75. That's the average. You're gonna starve at $75. You need to be in the 200 to $300 range to make this work. And the realtor you got to work with a realtor who's doing, steady business. If they're doing 5 houses a year, you're going to need a lot of those realtors doing 5 houses a year. That's not going to sustain you. You need top agents to survive in the real estate photography game, or you're just not going to make it. Does that help? Or am I helping with your questions, you guys? Let me know. It's like, Keith, you know what? I don't agree with that. Let me know. I'm not sensitive. And this is based on my experience as well. Your experience could be different. What's the minimum square footage? I don't usually have a minimum because it could be a 1-bedroom condo. And I'm going to tell you guys this because all of my clients that I'm working with right now, I've been with them for at least 7 years, at least. And driving all over town 70. No, it's not going to work. Here's the thing. My price is the same all the way up to 3,000 square feet. So, and my clients know that. So 3,000 square feet, the price is the same. After that, the price adjusts dramatically. So it doesn't matter. And it comes out in the wash because sometimes the houses at 3,000 square feet is, and I've kind of looked at the properties and I know like some they're just on the cusp. The lot is really big and all that kind of stuff. So since they paid me for the small, they paid full bore for that small property. I'm shooting this big one. It's kind of like a wash, and I don't make a big deal about that. But you can find out the square footage of a property all day, by just Googling it. So yeah. So you're going to make the same money. And now when you get into the bigger properties, like you're getting 1,500, couple thousand, it's a whole different ball game. And you might be making a couple trips out there. You're shooting one day, so $1,500, you're getting $750 a day. That's a whole different ball game. Any other questions? Great questions, you guys. Sally, my hour late for drone photography hasn't gone up in 20 years. Tell me why. Tell me why. And what city are you in, by the way, too? Because it's different for every city. It is definitely different. Any other questions before we part? Thank you, Amber. Thank you for the hearts. People just haven't been willing to pay. Oh, Vegas. Yeah. Ooh. Vegas is a tough market for photography. It really is. If you want to talk, call me, and then we can toss around some ideals. Because you might be doing everything right. 200. You know what? That just might be the threshold for residential. And that's, here's what I'm going to tell you. Let's say 2,500 square feet. That $200 is okay. I think what you might have to do is streamline, start cutting time off your processing and time off your shooting. Make it about, if you want to increase that $200 without increasing it to the client, cut out your workflow, cut some things out of your workflow, and think about a faster shooting style. Maybe you're going in and you're going to bracket, and I'm going to give this away right now. Bracket 3 photos. It could be 3, 5, 9. It just depends on the lighting in the house. Shoot everything on 3 brackets, and then go into Photomatics and batch process that stuff. And then once the image is batch processed, create your presets in Photomatics or whatever you're using, Topaz. Create your presets and apply it all the way through. When the images come up, all you got to do is go in and make your perspective corrections. Do that very quickly, and you can create presets for that as well. Do that very quickly and get out of there. Get your processing time down to 30 minutes so that you're 30 minutes on let's say your 2,500 square feet could take you 60 minutes, and then your 20 minutes, you got an hour and 20 minutes on processing. So then you're shaving off all that time and you're increasing your hourly. That's the only way I can see it, unless the client's going to pay you more money. Does that help? Oh, wow, yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's let me give you this. I'm going to give you number 2. Raise the price, maybe $100, and see what happens. You're gonna, and here's this happens in anything. You be in any market. When you raise your price, you're gonna lose clients, and then your real clients are gonna stay with you. And then I would go to those clients and say, "Hey, I just raised the price $100. Why did you stay?" And see what they say. Do a soft landing on your price raise. So send out a notice 6 months beforehand and say, "Hey, unfortunately, I've got to increase my price with the cost of living. As I have to give myself a cost of living raise. We've been at this level for 20 years, whatever the case may be," and make it happen. And I wouldn't feel bad about that. I mean, I think it's smart to stabilize your prices. Oh boy, we just lost the connection. Oh, there it is. Does this help? Does this help you? And I want you guys to be honest with me. Does this help? Is this information helping you guys? Throw up a Wi-Fi. Put in a Wi-Fi if tonight has helped you to understand. All right, perfect. Yeah, tell them baby need new shoes. Quit playing. All right. Thank you, Iris. All right, you guys. That's all I got for you tonight. And there's a lot more to it. Obviously, I can't deliver it all on Periscope. And let me preference this information by saying this is a Periscope. This is not the total format to deliver crucial information, but I want to give you guys some ideals, and that's the purpose of most of my scopes, is to give you ideals about things in hopes that you will dive into the information in a little bit more detail. Keith said, let me check that out, and then you can formulate your thoughts and opinions from there. All right, it has been great. Thank you for tuning in. I know this is not like the most popular area of photography to talk about because of the complexity of it and the cost of the gear, but it is, you can make a great living at it. But you got to put in a lot more work than you would most areas of photography. Thank you guys for tuning in. My name is Keith B Dixon, commercial photographer. If you're watching on the web, thank you. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. And I will see you guys on Monday from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'll be at NAB, and I'll be vacationing just a little bit. And there we go. Thank you guys. I'll see you I'll actually see you. I may scope on Sunday night. All right. I'll talk to you guys soon. Oh, you'll be at NBC. Yeah, so let's get together and talk, man. Let's hash that out. All right, you guys. Thank you. I will see you. Thank you, Daryl. My man, Daryl Hutton, hype man extraordinaire. Let's go.